Hey guys, my name is Matsumiyo, and welcome to episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for the day is, do you think that Clash is going to get a rework? She is almost always removed from the game. I feel really bad about this, not only for the people that enjoy playing as Clash, but also for the developers that are trying to fix these problems, because clearly it is a systemic issue, and they're having a difficult time getting to the root issue for why these glitches are occurring. It almost feels like we're at the point now where Clash has been in the game less time than she's been removed because of these problems. And so to answer your question, is Ubisoft going to be giving her a top to bottom rework so that we don't have to deal with this anymore? That's a difficult question to answer. On the one hand, I'm really rooting for Ubisoft to be able to figure out what is going on here, because I really feel for them. Like, this has got to be incredibly frustrating that people keep finding these glitches, and to have this happen over and over and over again, especially when you think that you've solved the problem, has to get under your skin. On top of that, for the few Clash mains out there, they don't want to see a top to bottom rework because it would completely change the way that this operator performs. It's the reason why they purchased it. They love that playstyle, and to have them change their favorite character simply because they couldn't resolve this problem would definitely be disappointing. On the other hand, though, and I realize I'm a bit biased here, I don't enjoy playing against Clash. I don't really like shield operators in Siege. Like, they're really cool conceptually, but I think they come with a host of their own problems, and especially for someone on defense who can literally just make callouts the entire round exactly where you are, and also physically slow down your character to the point where you feel like you're crawling around the map. Like, I just don't think that that's the most enjoyable gameplay experience. And so the idea of changing her significantly so I don't have to deal with that anymore sounds really appealing, but I realize that not everyone will share that same view. What I will say, though, is that I'm glad that Siege is at a point now where they have the ability to remove operators for a short period of time, because a couple of years ago, that simply wasn't the case. If there was an operator or a gadget that was causing some large problem, the community a few years ago would have just had to deal with it. And so the fact that they now have the ability to do so, especially with all the problems they've been having in Clash, at least is, I guess, a kind of a positive way of looking at this entire scenario. The next question comes from Kyle, and it is, how does Ubisoft expect Jaeger's pick rate to go down when they just gave nades to 3 more operators? That is a really good question. You would assume that if Ubisoft is trying to reduce his 90% pick rate, that they wouldn't be giving arguably one of the best secondary gadgets to more operators on offense that get directly countered by Jaeger. Like, that just seems counterintuitive. With that said, though, I don't know if that's what Ubisoft is necessarily going after. I think what they're trying to accomplish is just simply making Wamai a more appealing option, because they realize that someone like Jaeger and Wamai are always going to be necessary on defense. And so instead of just removing nades, which clearly is a way that they're trying to balance out these operators, I mean, Nook in particular is now going to have access to this, which is, in my opinion, going to make her significantly better. Instead of removing that option from the table to balance out these characters, they just need to continuously, maybe slowly whittle away at Jaeger's effectiveness so that he is more in line with someone like Wamai. They could even try to buff Wamai's ability a bit more so that he's just a bit more viable. And so all in all, while it is a bit ironic, that would be the way that it would look at things. Jaeger's not going anywhere. He's always going to be an influential operator on defense. That's not changing, but they're going to have to take other steps, I think, along the way to try to reduce it by a little bit. The next question comes from Josh, and it is, why do you think that Ubisoft is focusing on reworking the better maps in Siege and not maps like Favela and Tower? And do you miss Bartlett as much as I do? Well, I imagine the reason why they're doing this is for a couple of reasons. The first one is that if they wanted to rework Tower and Favela, they would essentially have to make brand new maps from the ground up. Tower is awesome conceptually, but it has core fundamental issues. The fact that you always have to be rappelling into the building itself, and there's really no safe area for offense to be able to chill out and drone. I know that there is those top balconies, but even that, if you get into the core part of the map, it's basically a roamer's paradise. And so maybe they could make it work somehow but I really just think that that map is flawed from its very concept. The same story is essentially true for Favela. Maybe not to the same extreme, but I really think that if they wanted to make something that was competitive, they would essentially have to make a brand new map. It wouldn't even resemble the old Favela because the original one just has so many core issues. The other reason, which I realize is kind of the same thing, is that the ones that they are reworking are already pretty solid, and they're just trying to improve upon the weaknesses or the issues that are there to make a more competitive map. I would argue that the ones where they went on in and made small subtle tweaks are way better than just doing a top to bottom rework. You have Cafe, the new and improved Oregon that's coming out. I find that to be a lot of fun. Theme Park I think is significantly better. Canals, those ones keep the essence of what they used to be, but don't have the large problems that they did before. And so I think that's really just what it comes down to, is that it's a lot easier to figure out what issues on maps that are already really good, how can we improve upon them, instead of having to do a top to bottom rework like we got with Hereford Base, which as we all know, didn't really go all that well. I would also argue that that's something that they're actually already doing with this season. I never expected House to be getting a rework, and lo and behold, that is something that they're trying to tackle. Also, Skyscraper has a lot of issues, and I don't know how they're going to be able to resolve them without some pretty substantial changes. And so I think you are getting kind of what you asked for, but maybe not on such a large scale. And so all in all, I would look at it from that point of view. To answer your last question, no, I do not miss Bartlett University whatsoever. That map is the bane of my existence. I think that is one of the worst maps ever made in a FPS game. It is that bad, and I hope that we never see a return to it. The next one comes from Brandon, and it is, have you seen the Tournament of Champions video? And if so, do you think that Cav saying I'll be back next year means that Ubisoft plans on bringing us a similar event at the end of year 5? Absolutely. I had that very same thought when she said that line, and I hope that this becomes a reoccurring theme. Every single year, they have this Tournament of Champions where we get to play on essentially a slightly reworked map of an existing one in this stadium setting. I think that that would be amazing. I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoyed the stadium content. I thought it was a breath of fresh air. Yes, it had its issues. It was essentially Oregon 2.0, but the fact that it was something different and they experimented with the windows, it really provided a gameplay experience that I apparently was longing for, and I would love for them to do this more often. Even if the maps aren't ultra competitive, just giving us more content to enjoy that is slightly different is something that I'm always going to be wanting. And so I'm really crossed my fingers that this is something that we're going to be getting more of, especially if they make it a new map, the same theme so that it is in the middle of the stadium, but we saw that this was a modular system. It was something that they had to build. I mean, even Mozzie at the beginning is placing down barricades at the start of the match, and so if they were able to give us another mashup, because this one was Oregon and Hereford, if we got, I don't know, like Canals, or if they brought in something else existing from different maps and smashed them together and made something new, I am completely on board with that. Especially considering that we're not going to be getting any new maps with year 5. I know that that kind of stings. If they were able to do more of these events frequently, I think that that would be something that many people enjoy, me included. The next question is, with us only getting one new operator a season in the future, do you think that we will ever see an operator who can be played on both offense and defense? Their primary gadget and weapon loadout would remain the same, with only their secondary gadget being changed. I would say maybe. I've gotten this question a lot over the years, and I've always struggled coming up with a good response because I think it would be very difficult for Ubisoft to come up with a compelling operator that works both for offense and defense that doesn't have some sort of power issue. On the one hand, you need to give them a weapon that is viable for the offensive operators, so you probably want to give them access to an ACOG attachment, but on the other hand, you don't want it to be completely overpowered, busted on defense, so it can't be too strong. Now, at the same time, they also need to have a gadget that works for both sides and is well balanced. Ubisoft has a bunch of amazing developers that come up with some really creative ideas. I will fully admit, every single season I'm always surprised by what they come up with because I always think they're scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to these operator ideas, but they keep coming up with something fresh that just somehow continuously works, especially with this upcoming season, like with Yana in particular. Like, I think she's an awesome blend of existing operators, but does something new and different. I love that kind of stuff, and so I think that they have the creativity to accomplish this goal. but it can't be an easy task. And so it's for those very reasons why I've never really been sold on this idea. You bring up a good point though, with year 6 only having 4 operators stretched out between all the different seasons, having one that can be played on the 2 different teams does sound really appealing, and it could be something that we expect. Like, that might be what Ubisoft has in store, but I would be really curious to see how they can accomplish making not only the weapons balance for each team, but also a gadget that is viable but not overpowered or broken or useless for one over the other. Yeah, guys, that has been it for today's episode of Monday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Would you like to have an operator that can be played on both different teams? How do you think that they could go about balancing, or what would their gadget be? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.